morning. My name is Larry Walker. I'm the pastor of Sanctuary Fellowship Church, where Kevin attended. We want to take this opportunity on behalf of Kevin's family, Carrie and grandbabies, friends and loved ones, to thank you for being here today in memorial of his life. As always, this church, if you don't know a lot about our church, we never start on time, so we decided we'd wait and start late again today. Kevin will have a kick out of that. We're glad you're here. And today's memorial service is truly going to be a memorial service in honor and memory of a man who touched many, many lives, and many of us love dearly. Kevin McNeil came to us approximately 2 years ago at this church, and I'm proud to say to you today that I served as his pastor. He was quick with wit, as you well know, and had a large sense of humor. And always was a blessing to me and my family and those who had a chance and occasion to visit with him. He was full of passion, he was full of love, and he wasn't much on traditional church, and so that's the reason he liked us, because we're not really a traditional church in a lot of ways. We're a very unique group of people, and he loved coming here, and we loved having him here with us. And so today, I could spend 30 minutes or an hour just talking about Kevin, but I'm not going to do that today. I know that a lot of people expect the pastor to get up and do a little sermon after, memorial service. I'm not going to do that today, because to me, it's important for us to hear from you, and it's important for you to know that Kevin will be memorialized today in a special way, in a unique way, in a sanctuary way. And the most important thing I can say about Kevin is a child of God. He's a believer in Jesus Christ as his Savior and the only means whereby he may be saved. We would want you to know that as well, and to consider that lifestyle as he did. But today I want to take time, and we're going to watch a little video in honor of Kevin. As soon as the video is over, we're going to open up the microphone for anyone that wants to come up and say what you will in honor of Kevin, the time that you've known him. I know that for some of you it will be difficult amidst the tears, but just keep in mind, if you start to choke up, what Kevin would say to me, he would say, wipe those snot bubbles out of your nose and suck it up. And just keep that in mind. You'll probably giggle a little bit, catch your composure again, and be able to continue on. We're going to watch a video of Kevin. As soon as the video is over, we're going to ask Brad to start us off and come on up and say a few words. Not Brad, David. Come up and say a few words. And David, you can start us off, and then whoever wants to go after that, feel free to do so. What we'll do is end with Jeff Clark. He'll be the last one. He'll wait a period of time. And like I say, it's open to everyone.
Soon I will be there to brighten even your darkest night. You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. See you again. just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Oh, baby, don't you know about winter, spring, summer, or fall? Hey, now all you got to do is call. Lord, I'll be there, yes I will. You've got a friend. You've got a friend. Yeah. Ain't it good to know you got a friend? Ain't it good to know you got a friend? Oh yeah, yeah, you've got a friend.
Good pictures of Kevin. A lot of memories there. I remember him calling me when Carrie was born. Marty had Darby and Brad had Jill, and now three of us had our little girls. And that was very, very important to me to have this family. I met Kevin in 1967 when we were sophomores in high school. We became very close friends all through high school. He kept me real balanced because I had a tendency to like more of myself than I should have probably. Brad and Kevin and Jeff. He was always part of our family. He was really close to my father. So he didn't have a too good relationship with his father, but I didn't even know he had his father until later. But my dad tended to like Kevin because he was always eager to help, and he was always around. And Brad and that Doug and everybody would come over, and Kevin would be at our home with us on Christmas and Thanksgiving because we wanted him to be included in our family, and he seemed to like that. We went on a motorcycle trip together, and we were just always together. Brad came over, and we became really good friends in high school and in college. When we went up on state, Brad came over, and they became more close than I really was. But I got to go and see them, and we became kind of little amigos, running around trying to fit in. And so Brad and Kevin became really good friends after I went to Florida. They continued to be friends, and when I come back to family reunions, Kevin was always there. I'd come and visit him. And one of the things that I wanted to get into Kevin is that the Lord, I was always real spiritual, and Kevin was kind of a arm's length. But in the last couple of years, he had called me and told me that he had found his church family, and that I was really happy about that. I just knew that he believed in Jesus, but he wasn't really wanting to talk about it too much. Until he came to this family, and you guys opened his heart and his mind and raised him. It's not a bunch of religious stuff, but love and friendship that we should have as a body of Christ. When I came back, Brad called me and said, Kevin wanted me to come here. I didn't really realize it was that bad until he said to come on here. And so that was, 4 or 5 weeks ago. And I was able to help Kevin and be their friend and help him do the things that he wanted to do by himself. We had some moments where we talked about people and relationships and about God. And for sure he's a Christian. For sure Jesus is a Christian Savior. For sure he's in heaven. I just hope the angels are ready for him. Might make some changes up there. So, there's so many friends that he has that I've become friends with. That are just, he had quality friends, and most people are quality people. Okay? And I'm thankful for that he has, everybody that, Jeff and Brad and Dan and him and, Bill, everybody, you Marianne, everybody, he just, you were his family, okay? And he had a knack for bringing people together in his own way that you just really liked him. He had a great personality, he had high morals, he was an ethical person, and he saw that in other people. Brad wrote the bill in the paper, which I thought was good. The only thing he did is he left Max out. So we all love Max. In fact, Max is probably the reason he met a lot of you. He was an animal lover, he was a good provider for him. And I just thank you for taking care of him and helping me over there. Because if you brought food, if you came by to see him, he liked that. Because there was things, and things happened, and the Lord was ready for him to come home. Everybody gathered around Kevin and made it as good as possible in a difficult situation. I was just, my life would have been so much different if he hadn't been in it. And I was just thankful that he was there. And I left something out that wasn't coming up here. But I love you guys all. Thank you for helping him. If I don't see you again, I'll see you in heaven.
Thanks, David. I thought what I might want to say. David said it pretty well for me, I think, too. So I'll just add a few things. Like you said, I met him in college, and we, had a pretty good time. And I terrorized OSU for a couple of years there before I dropped out, and kind of lost track of each other until our 30s, and then that's when we got together when I was living in Guthrie and struggling after the oil collapse at the time, and he was going through some difficulties of his own, and we moved in together, pooled our resources, and spent a year together living out in an old schoolhouse north of Guthrie, Oklahoma, and eating hot dogs and running sandwiches to get by. And like David alluded to, we were kind of the three amigos in high school and stuff, but living with Kevin, we're all very strong personalities, David and I and Kevin, and so you had a lot of great moments, and then you have some, a lot of, tense moments, but most of them were always, all the memories are good ones, and even the tense moments we turned around and laughed about later, because the one thing I could always count on when I got together with Kevin was that I knew I was going to laugh a lot that weekend, because we could both make each other, always make each other laugh, and we had very similar personalities in that regard. And over the last 25 years, since our 30s, we have always maintained our relationship with each other and closely, and that's one that I cherish. In this life, you don't have very many close friends, and in my case, I think Kevin had a lot more friends than I do, but especially because of the different organizations and stuff that he was active in and I wasn't. Most people can see their friends or number them on one hand, and most of those are related to them. And Kevin was surely he was my absolute best friend that was not part of my actual family, and I'll miss him very, very dearly. And I know that my mother was like David's mom was his second mom. My mother was like a second mom to him, and so we all loved having him there, and he always added to the family gatherings when he was there. So these pictures were difficult to watch. I was there in some of those in the background in some of those pictures, and know what was going on in that time, and just know that I'm going to really miss him. I think everybody else here will too. I want to do like David and thank everybody that was friends with him and helping and thinking about him and coming by, and thank this church for providing for his funeral service and the expenses of that and his last rites and things. And I think that's a wonderful gift that you all did for him and his family. And just want to wish Carrie and his grandkids that he was just absolutely, those are his jewels in this life as his family and daughter and two granddaughters. And that was, they took over, they were the number one over
I'm Dee River, and I met Kevin cutting his hair 20 years ago. And I've been sitting around thinking about one word, things to describe him, and Carrie always comes up first. And then Patty and Paige, which you didn't see on the film. That was always his big smile. And Max, Yankees, Ronnie, spiritual, joy, flowers, plants, spirits, drums, souvenirs, movies, genuine love, appreciative. And every time I would go see him, he always would tell me something nice about myself, and it always felt good when I walked in the door. And if I ever was upset about something personal, real angry or mad, he would always make me see the right way to handle it. He always encouraged me and praised me. Yes.
Well, I'm Mary Nansenson, and I work for the Tulsa Chamber, so remember that. And I met Kevin when he came to work for us in 1998. First thing he mentioned was Carrie, redhead. And I said, oh, I chose redheads, be careful. Sweet grandchild that was born in the call, so another redhead. But anyway, Kevin was, we had a unique relationship. We had some bonds that were, of course, the Yankees and me and Babe Ruth are probably up in heaven now arguing about spring training. Anyway, we bantered back and forth about the Yankees and who was going to do this and who was going to do that. And playoffs, we were on the phone and texting, did you see this, did you see that? And the OU game was the same thing. But it's pretty cool. Kevin was a very wonderful, giving man. And back to the Tulsa Chamber, he did sales and marketing with me. And I trained him, I mentored him, whatever, but he, up to his last few days of his precious life, said, did you sell anything? I said, you gotta be kidding me. Why aren't you at work? Why are you here? Carrie, right? I mean, he was, and like Dee said, he would say, are you doing okay? How are you doing? And it was always all about you and not himself. And that was pretty cool. And we went to Cleveland once to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I discovered something that I didn't know about him, that he loved John Lennon more than the rest of it, but John Lennon. So we went up there to the museum, and we both cried because it was a John Lennon exhibition, and Carrie, I don't know if you remember, we talked about the Cleveland. Later we talked about, John Lennon was such an inspiration in his life and such a talented man, so I hope he and John Lennon were grooving or whatever it was called. But anyway, Kevin, sometimes we've become reclusive, off and on throughout the years. So I said, come on, come to a chamber event with me. No, nobody's going to know me. I said, I'll know you. And I'll be darned if we go and people that he hadn't seen in years, because he worked there in 1998. Would come up and say, Kevin McNeil. And I stopped, Kevin. And so he is remembered. From JC's to the chamber to all the different things he was involved in. And I sure will miss him, and God bless him. And God bless the guys, David, awesome, Brad, Ronnie, so many people that have come out for this. And he's looking down at us going, don't trip, because I tripped when I came in. Nick said, oh my God, you're going to fall down. I said, not here.
brother or another cousin. But he never would be in our family picture. We always took a good picture of here. Kevin would never be in it. Well, finally in 2005, I just put my foot down and I insisted. And I brought the picture with me. He's over on the edge. But in 2005, we finally got a picture of Kevin in our family reunion.
My name is Hart Mason. I'm little brother to Brad, cousin to David, and dear friend of Kevin's. Kevin's a dear friend of mine. Reverend Walker, thank you for these facilities and being Kevin's spiritual leader. It's very reassuring to know how Kevin came to know the Lord. He's in heaven. You know, we can all join him someday. So thank you for all your love. I met Kevin through my brother Brad when I was 16. And of course, the most important part of knowing Kevin was his relationship with my brother Brad. You know, what a dear relationship that has been for you. And what a loss that is, as it is for all of us. Knowing Kevin, kind of like a little brother in some ways, through the years, but I got to know him in a different way, as an employer. I was doing work in Savannah, Georgia, in telecommunications, and in that industry, it's a life of assignments. Usually they last a year, half a year. And I was about out of work, and I get a call from Kevin. And Kevin says, hey, I'm going to be market director for a Sprint job in Houston, Texas. And I'd like for you to be one of my unit teachers. Would you come and work for me? And I, of course, accepted. And not only did I get to know Kevin as an employer, but I got to live with him for 10 months on Lake Conroe. And your dad, as a boss, he was very meticulous. He was a leader. That's why they hired him as a market director. His style was he let you do your job and have the responsibilities that he expected you to carry out. Living with him, he was a neatnik. He kept the place really, really neat. And I had the room above, and he had the lower level. And I think in 10 months, I think he came up to my room one time. And when he saw what it looked like, he never came up again. Because I'm pretty much the opposite of that, right under. But, you know, and all that he did for me in that work, because I grew tremendously as a manager. It's funny how with people in life, you kind of remember the small things. And two of the small things in my life, but that I remember Kevin probably most for. One, when we lived together, he told me about this sitcom called Seinfeld. And I didn't know anything about Seinfeld. He said, come on, watch it with me. So I watched it with him a couple of times, and I wasn't impressed, because Seinfeld, you all know, was kind of weird anyway. And he said, no, just watch it 2 more times. And I did, and I loved it, and I've been hooked on Seinfeld
ever since. So Kevin introduced me to Seinfeld. And then occasionally we would go shopping together, grocery shopping. And I know you all may not get this, but to me it's funny, it's hilarious. And it's I'll always remember him for this. Well, I don't know if it's because of being the baby of the family or what, but as my wife well knows, I'm kind of, in my family, I'm kind of a whiner. I whine a little bit. Well, we were grocery shopping, and I guess I must have been whining about something, the prices of the groceries or something, and there's this, all of a sudden this baby starts whining, whining. And your dad turns to me and goes, you know what, you remind me of that baby. You're always whining. And for years after that, when we'd see each other, he'd go, so when I hear a baby whining, I think of Kevin. Thank you.
My name's Paul Thomas. I'm one of the church members at Sanctuary, and was very pleased to get to know Kevin. And I'll tell you just a little quick vignette, a little story that I think says a lot about my son Matthew, who is here somewhere. He's 18 years old, and he's autistic. And he has a very interesting way of dealing with people. And he either really makes a connection with you or he doesn't. But Kevin really worked to make the connection with Matt. And he would ask him about baseball. So they had a little, they would always have a little dialogue. And Kevin would occasionally, or most of the time, sit kind of like in the family picture. He's kind of on the edge. So he'd sit back there and call that part of the sanctuary the dog pound. Yeah, I'm sitting back in the dog pound. And I always got a bit of a chart about that. But we were doing I was teaching a class, and we were using Mr. Rogers as kind of an example. That Mr. Rogers walked as Jesus walked. And surely we can walk like Mr. Rogers. Maybe we can't walk like Jesus, or at least maybe we don't think we can. But surely, Mr. Rogers is not that special, right? Well, he actually is, because he does walk like Jesus. Well, anyway, we're going to do a class on Mr. Rogers, and Kevin seemed to really like classes, our adult classes, and he would challenge us. And so he came up to me when that class was announced, and he said, "Oh, right. We're going to have a class in church about Mr. Rogers. I can't wait to see this one." And so, always had a little bit of an interesting edge, and very willing to challenge. But at the same time, he would show up, right? So he's coming to every class, and he is making sure that this is not fluff. This is an actual class. Well, the class is over, and Kevin sat in the front, right in front, which was a little unusual, but okay, whatever. And at the end of the class, he said, "I've got something for you." And he pulled out of his bag an autographed picture of Mr. Rogers. And he had been hunting for memorabilia, sports memorabilia, autographed, and I know that he's got quite a collection of that kind of stuff. But he was poking around looking at autographed stuff and came across this autographed picture of Mr. Rogers. And Mr. Rogers had long since passed away. But the inscription on the picture was to Matthew, which is my son's name. And he said, "I saw that, and I just had to do it." He said, "So I bought it, here it is, and I appreciate the class that you taught." And that just meant a whole lot to me. It was a very sweet tender moment. And he didn't want to make a fuss about it, because I kind of started to make a brother, I appreciate it. Don't make a big deal of this. Well, and since then, I have that in my office. So, just right in the middle of my credentials is a picture of Mr. Rogers. And you know what? It is fascinating. Just about everybody that comes into the room, into my office, says something about the picture. Autographed picture of Mr. Rogers. What's that about? And it just has opened many, many opportunities for me to have a discussion with people about things that matter.
because Kevin gave this picture to me. I've got it up in my office. So that's just a little vignette of how he has impacted me and my family. And we appreciate that. We can tell just by what you have all said, the depth of his caring, and we appreciate having him here for a relatively short time, but I'm sure we would love it. Thanks.
All right, ready to start. I met Kevin probably 7 or 8 years ago. I'm a neighbor and a real good friend. Kevin along the years kind of became a family member. There was, Tom's in here, Jay, Donna, girls. If he wasn't a friend, he was a grandfather figure to a lot of the kids around. I think all of us know him through Max. His wittiest smart aleck I've ever known in my life, and it made me love him even more. It'd always be a battle of wits with Kevin, and it all started through walking Max up and down the road, and Max would come up, and I remember Brooklyn being really, really small, and Max came over, and I think that was the first time that you guys met branches back there, and then Jay introduced him to us and to Tom, and next thing you know, he's even cookouts with us, and hanging out in the swimming pool with us, and you get a lot of teachings from Kevin too. He liked to teach everybody lessons, and my son, I didn't. This part's gonna check me up, but I didn't realize how close the kids got to him. He taught my son to play drums. Very, very cool. And he stayed on and then once we made Nick commit, he said, Nick, I'm not going to spend all this time with you if you're not going to go ahead and follow through. So you got to practice. And once Nick decided to do that, Nick was on his drums whether he liked it or not. So anyway, his sense of humor was unbelievable, and it did last up until the last couple of days, and I remember I got a text and a phone call and I needed to hurry up and go up there, and went up there and brought Nick up there, and we're sitting home and things, and he could tell we were there, and he'd look over and understand you and things, and I said to him, I said, Kevin, Nick's here. He looks up and whatever, and I said, is he still as ugly as he used to be? And if he did, through all the stuff he's going through, he's there going like this. So, I get to remember him for all his wit, all his caring, all the mentoring he did for my son and for some of the other children in the neighborhood, and he will be missed.
My name is Tom Price. I'm one of the neighbors also. And what Bill just told you about Max is very true. David commented on it when he was remembering Kevin. And I can remember that Kevin would get so mad at me because whenever he would leave one of our get-togethers, of which we had many, I'd always tell Max to go home. And I knew he couldn't stand it. So loud, we kept doing it. Now, all of you that know me can appreciate this. I am an OU football fan, a Dallas Cowboy football fan, and a huge Yankee fan. Now, you take his, how do you put this, spirited personality with his love of those three things, and combine it with talking with another spirited personality. Here, you can imagine that we had many heated discussions about how things should be done. There's a lot that he brought to our neighborhood. But I think the thing that I'm going to take away is how he left us. He wasn't expecting this. No one was. He had been complaining for months and months about having it. And I know that some of us in the neighborhood, like Jay or Dan, would try and get him to go and get it checked. But like me, as most men are, he just wouldn't do it until finally he had to. And yet, when that moment came, is when I think he showed more of what he was about than he probably ever had in his life. He showed more dignity and grace in leaving us than anyone I think I've ever met. And that's what I'm going to take away more than anything in the relationship that I have. I know in the last few weeks, whenever he would see, at least when I would be around him, and I heard this from others in our neighborhood, he'd always be glad to see you. He'd always say he just feels blessed. And he meant it. And at that point in our lives, to be able to say that and truly mean it is a lesson that I think we can all take away. I just hope to God and pray to God that I'm half the man he is if I ever have that hurt happen. I think given his, and I don't want to overdo the sports thing, but it was very important. And I think we can all look back, especially the males here, so many of the bonds that we create in our families, between our fathers, brothers, friends, neighbors, business associates, and sports related. And that was true with Kevin. But he meant it by God. I mean, he loved the Yankees and the Sooners, and that was a huge part of his life. So I think, at least what I want to remember, is how, when he left us, he truly felt like one of his Yankee heroes, Lou Gehrig. And he said, I feel like I'm the luckiest man on earth. And I think Kevin felt that way, and I think we all feel that way.
If there's someone else who would like to come up and share a memory of Kevin, now would be the time. Okay. A person can never be happy until they appreciate what they have. Amen. Well, I also want to join in on the celebration of Kevin's life today. My name is Jeff Clark. I, too, am one of his neighbors and one of the members here of this particular body. I was thinking back to when I first met Kevin, and Tom and Jay and I were talking about this the other night. We decided it was in the fall of 2004. And Jay reminded me that Kevin had been next door doing a little work for the woman there. And Jay met Kevin and then found out we were OU guys, Sooner guys. So we watched the game together and that afternoon. And I remember he showed up and he had a little football helmet. And we watched the game. And I
is he ever going to come up for air? Because he just kept talking. And I thought, Jay, what have you done to our yard? We used to get to watch the game. Now we got this running commentary. And I just figured he was a longtime friend of Jay's. Actually, at that moment, Jay's a friend to everybody. And then I later discovered, the connection there. And then he'd walk Max down the sidewalk, and they'd stop. And Brooklyn would pet Max, and Kevin just used that dog to meet everybody. He said, I wouldn't have half the neighbors, half the friends I've got if it wasn't for Max. And, now he's given you, Paul, a little Max in the way of Mr. Rogers' picture opening. And once he had the opening, he knew how to carry on the conversation. He absolutely did. It just didn't matter whether the Yankees were up by 10 in the 9th inning or behind early in the game. Kevin just had plenty of fun commentary along the way. He was a great conversationalist. There are many areas in Kevin's life that I could talk about today. It's been such a joy to hear each of you reflect on your memories and your relationship with Kevin and bring depth to this time for us today as we celebrate his life. But for me, a particular time that I'd like to go back to and reflect on is actually the day we were standing in Bill Heck's garage. And Kevin, as usual, was talking about lots of things. And I think Tom was there and Jay was there. And he started talking about when he used to go to church and when he was in Bible class. And he said, you know what, I enjoy the adult class. I like the interaction. I like hearing people discuss things and bringing things to bear. He goes, I really couldn't stand for the preaching at all. He goes, I like to go to class and then just skip all the preaching. You could hear him just saying, just like that. And so I'm where I'll stand around. I said, well, Kevin, I'm going to start a class in about 3 weeks in our little church on Florida. And I said, why don't you come? I said, you can come to class and you can skip the preaching. How about that? So he started showing up. And he stayed and participated in the class, as you heard Paul talk about in Paul's class. And he stayed for the preaching. And he met Pastor Larry early. He really enjoyed listening to Pastor Larry. Larry at the time was going through a particular series that really touched Kevin. And that meant a lot to him. So after attending for a few weeks, and as Paul said, he'd sit right up here. He called that the dog man. And I was just in. But he, one of the events that happened, and you'll remember this, Carrie, you and your daughters were coming to visit, and he wanted to bring Carrie and his granddaughter to the church. He wanted all of us to meet his new little church family, and he talked about that for actually several weeks ahead of time. He was wearing my ear out, talking about it. And you remember you guys came. And that, he wanted your daughters to meet Lexi, Jordan Smith, this little redheaded girl, and he was all excited about that. And we had our service together, and I remember sitting right over here, and towards the end of the service, I felt this tap on my shoulder. And it was Kevin. And so I'm trying to think of when he'd say those little bubbles in your nose. I heard him say that. And he said, I want you to pray for me and my family. So we did. And we did. And over the next few months, there were a few other occasions, particularly during our adult class time, he would ask that we pray for him and his family. When I think about it, one of the gifts Kevin gave to us, I'm sure he gave it to you, but I've heard this theme already. He gave it to us, his church in a way, gave us a lot of encouragement. And he was an encourager. He gave the gift of just being a good neighbor and buddy to us in the neighborhood. Pardon me for just a moment. Yeah. And another gift he gave was being a trainer. He was a trainer for some of our neighborhood boys. And 3 of them are here this morning. Matthew and Andrew, Stephen and Nick. Kevin enjoyed his time with you, very much so. He enjoyed being your trainer during the summer. He enjoyed hanging out with you. And just hold on to these memories. He pushed you, I know, because I was part of that one a couple of times. He pushed you because he cared about you. He obviously wanted you to be ready for fall football, but he cared about you. He wanted you to do well, not only in your training, but in life. And I was thinking, in case when you guys are having a kind of a tough day, particularly if you're doing some training, just think about that crazy little song he played for you. You know what song I'm talking about? Right at the end, kind of bring you in on the last quarter mile or whatever. He played that crazy little song for you out of his vehicle, and hang on to that. I am almost finished here. We'll wrap it up. Not too long ago, Kevin looked at me and, you know, he loved playing poker, so he used this poker analogy. But we were talking about spiritual things, and David talked about this thing already. He said, Jeff, I am all in faith. I said, Kevin, that's a very nice to do. And Tom talked about finishing strong, and it's good to have some peace. He had some peace. The eyes of his heart were wide open, and that allowed him to complete his earthly journey with a very strong finish. When Kevin began attending this church in the summer of 2009, I went back and looked at that class that we were going to start, June the 14th. And our adult class that day was on prayer. And I went back and looked at my notes, and I noticed that the topic for that day was one unique relationship. And I heard you make reference to that earlier in the talk, a unique relationship. And obviously the class is about our unique relationship with God, prayer. But I think it fits for us today, and it's a good reminder for me, because I feel like mine was unique. I've heard stories today about yours being unique. I think it's just a good reminder for us, and it's such a descriptor for Kevin's relationship with us about it being a very unique relationship. We began our study that day on prayer, and so I thought it would be fitting for kind of a closure for our memorial time together if I would just read the Lord's Prayer. And it's in the New King James Version, so it will read. I'm going to read this prayer, and then at the conclusion of this, I'm going to lead us in prayer, this continuation of this, and then we will conclude this part, and we'll have some words together. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. And Father God, we continue this prayer, giving you thanks for Kevin McNeil, for his life, for how he lived, for the relationships he had, for his family, and that he was able to finish strong. Father, I want to lift up Carrie and her daughters and her family to you today for comfort and peace. We are mourning, but that's part of it, and it's because we care and we love him. And I ask that you give each of us a measure of peace this day. We thank you for the time that we can celebrate Kevin's life, and we want all of this to be